Hi, still becoming, and welcome. Come on in, come hang out for a little bit here, and we'll get down to our episode today, which I wanted to get, kind of another episode. It's been a while of the kind of still becoming together segment with my wife here, a very lovely Rachel. And I just felt that it was time to catch up, see where she's at in our topic today, which is titled balance. And so, that's just about how do you balance your passion in a life of family? And also, even if you just separate us, how do I balance it versus her? And, as we know from our last episode, she's a little bit more on the, like, hey, I'll get it in when I get it in. And again, there's nothing wrong with that versus me. It's the focus, like I'm driven, like fire. But really it's, neither one is wrong. And that's what this segment is about. It's about letting you know that neither option is wrong, but there is a perspective to it that, there's got to be a balance. And definitely today is a wonderful topic about balance. And, it's going back to, a couple weeks ago, my wife went to a convention and it was like, how do I balance all that on the 4th of July running a half marathon? And so it's just the training that entails that, how do you navigate that? One parent is kind of, taking on a bit more at a time when maybe somebody is performing in that condition that they've been training for, preparing for many years, and it takes place somewhere else. And so how do you balance that and still give yourself that opportunity to say, it's okay to do this. And, it's okay to show your kids like, hey, I can still thrive and put something together and sort of balance that. And so again, no wrong answer. Just, sometimes you just have to work through those tough parts as well when you're having to feed and, take care of your kids when they might be younger than ours. Ours are teenagers or borderline. One of them's almost a teenager. Might as well call him a teenager, our youngest. But so just thought I'd open the floor to Rachel. And if you want to add anything to what I was just, introducing here.
No, but we can use that example. How did you balance while I was gone for a few days?
I would say it was a very tough balance. I would say performance-wise, and I know I got this on from a particular follower on my Instagram channel. And for those of you that don't know, Still Becoming 26 at Instagram. There you can follow just progress of me just keeping at it, keeping still becoming. And so, yeah, I would definitely say, yes, I would say I did everything I could do to manage that. The stresses were just, I set an expectation on myself that I don't think I should have. And that's part of on me because I just live in that expectation of I expect better from me. And I think that's something overall I need to work on better and being what I would consider just you're showing up. And I know I preach that a lot. You got to show up. And sometimes, even me, the host, shows up and expects more when really I think a B standard would still be an A. And so that being said, I would say the race that I wanted did not go to, this expectations I was training for, but I would say I showed up and I still think it was an amazing effort that I gave. And I still think I would say the kids were at least happy and they did what they enjoyed, but I think I put too much pressure on myself. So I would definitely say I did not handle that as well as I could have. She's smiling now because...
What was your schedule though? What were your training days? I left on Thursday morning and came home on Monday. So what was your...
So in terms of that, I did get up in the morning. I knew because we also have 2 dogs. I knew I had to balance that. I did not miss a workout, which that to me is like, boom, that should at least speak volume as I still was getting everything in balance wise. I knew, okay, I'm probably going to get to bed late. I'm probably going to get, lose some sleep during this time, but I got to maximize what I can. Luckily, my kids are a bit older, so they can put themselves to bed. So I at least relied on that a bit much. Just get them upstairs, get them to their room. And I could at least get to bed by 8, 9 o'clock and knew like, okay, discipline. I got to get up at least 4, get the workout in. And what?
I don't get up before.
Yes, that's managing your time. That would be, to me, I feel like that's the best time I can get it in and feel like I get enough time to it. But that was my strategy.
Balance.
That's still done. Yes, that is exactly right. But yes, I would say it was just about about really showing up and managing that like the discipline has to be there if you want to make this work. And so, yes, I was getting up at 4 a.m. and then I come back and try to walk the dogs for, 20 minutes, whatever I could, and get them out. And I know the race took place Saturday. And so, my son wanted to do the 5K. So we left that morning, my younger one, and I was helping him warm up and trying to manage my expectations and keep things going. And so, yes, it was just like I had to stay on task in the mornings and manage that, with family. My workouts, to me, they had to, if I wanted it to be priority, I had to put in an effort that meant you got to get up early and you got to do your best to get to bed early. And Sunday, when I actually had a day off, it was like, well, I still wasn't feeling great, but hey, the dogs need walking. I'm not feeling mentally too awesome. So it was nice to be able to get out, I would say, that morning and, get my dogs out for like 45 minutes, an hour. It was a bit longer of a walk and that was at least a little bit enjoyable. But yes, to answer that, it at least I hung in there. I really wish I would have taken advantage of just telling myself to relax.
I asked what your workouts were, though. How long did you have to work out?
Oh, I would say, what was it? It was, I don't remember. I'd have to look back at that. But I would say workouts were anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes during those days that you were gone. And so that being said, I still have a little bit of morning PT that I do, like warm-up exercises. So it was about 2 hours. I was up at 4. I didn't leave the house at 4, but I was up at about 4, and I'd leave the house about like 4:45, 5 o'clock, and then I'd be back just before 7. So that's almost 3 hours. But I mean, that entails like you're also changing. I'm not jumping out the door. I don't like to get up and roll out of bed and go. I'd rather lose 20 minutes of sleep and feel not rushed out the door and stressed in that sense. But, to each their own.
So looking back, would you have done anything different to help with more balance? Or would you have done the exact same thing?
I would have done the same thing. I would have probably found a way to give myself more of a pass when it comes to not feeling like during the day where I was wearing myself out, that idea of like, the kid's got to be here, the kid's got to be there. Like, I was essentially single parenting it. So it was more of that, like, I created an expectation that I felt I wanted to go above and beyond and make sure the kids also had the best time of their lives. But really by Saturday afternoon and really Sunday, I was broken and I was just defeated emotionally. I think I got like 10 hours of sleep in like a Friday and like Saturday. And so it really wasn't great, but I think I would have done that a little bit differently as like, so what if they just hang around and play video games for 2 hours or so? At least to me, my kids find that to be happy, as many of you else out there. Your kids also find that to be exciting if you're playing video games.
Screen time, sure.
Yeah, screen time sometimes can be utilized. I think that's actually a good thing. Most people would see it as a bad thing, but screen time can be sometimes good when you have teenagers because that's all they care about mostly.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
That's kind of what I would do differently. But I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, right? You can't ever go back and change that. You can only learn from that experience. And so I have to learn from that experience next time and do better. I would say, how did you manage that whole thing being away and realizing like, oh my gosh, my husband sounds like the house is on fire, and I have to at least know like, hey, I'm in Vegas and he's at home and I can't really help him all that much. And I can't panic that way. He's doing fine. But yes, I mean, how did you manage that?
You all made it through.
Yeah.
Well, I only had to balance it while I was gone in the sense that the kids would call me and ask for something.
Because I was at work.
Because you were at work. Yeah. So it's easy for me to balance when I'm gone. But how
do you, I guess, turn off that? I know for a lot of moms out there, I talked to a few, and even then, it's just, even if you're just a single parent, you leave them with your parents, or you leave them with stepdad or something. I mean, you leave them with dad there, and that notion of, as a mom, typically you always are on, and so when you get to go away and be in your environment, and for you, it was a salsa convention, which is like, that is like your bread and butter. You just love that. You love it as much as I love running. And so like, how did you manage that expectation to just like, okay, I'm here, even though things are going bad. My mind is like, I'm here with my ladies. I'm having a great time. I can't do anything to really psych myself out being there.
From a mom perspective, I think that's something that takes practice, and you have to do it more and more. Leave your kids with someone, go away, realize they are okay without you, because I think we as moms always feel like our children aren't okay without us, or we need to be there constantly. And I try to remind myself that my goal as a mother is to raise kids that are going to be independent. So, and it's good for them to see that their parent has an identity outside of just mom. So I try to remember that. And my mom and I were talking about this. It's actually, I don't know how they did it when we were kids, because they didn't have Ring cameras. They didn't have all of the ways I can be 2 states away and pop up the Ring camera and see what my kids are doing inside. So as far as the stress of everything, I guess that's way easier, knowing I can keep tabs on my kids while I'm gone.
It is true. Even me being at work where I was, 15 minutes away, I could look in and be like, what are you doing? Put that down. What are you doing?
But I also think when you were talking, and I think something that especially single parents out there, or just managing everything, I think having realistic expectations of yourself and what you're going to do with your goals, with your passions, your extracurricular activities, whatever it may be, your workout schedule, make it realistic. When we had toddlers, my workouts looked like 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Maybe I'm just doing sit-ups on the floor while the baby's on tummy time, so I think being okay with what you can do at that stage of your life. And I think every single spot is different in how you approach it and how you do it.
Well, I guess, you're so calm with it too. Like, I guess, what would you tell a mother that is, maybe single parenting it, and that idea of like how their brain works? I gotta be just ferocious, or I gotta be, I just need to get my workout on. I need to get my fix. And it's more of like, I'm training for this 5K. I understand I can't train for a half because I have 2 toddlers, or I have a toddler, and I really feel like I still want to do well. So
Sure.
How do you manage that expectation for something like that, or performance coming up?
Well, I think you have to think outside the box and get creative. When I wanted to work out at a gym, part of the perks of why I wanted to teach Zumba was because I got free gym memberships. And with free gym memberships, usually there was childcare. So I could get a free gym membership for doing something. It doesn't have to be teaching a group fitness class, but you could work at the gym part-time for something, and then you get the trade-off of having the daycare. Or you get a mom squad and a couple of other running friends or people in the neighborhood to keep an eye on the kids for an hour while they're playing outside. Or I think, especially for parents with young kids, you either have to take them with you on your journey while you're training. You did that.
Yeah.
In the stroller.
Oh yeah. Double strollers, man.
Mhm.
That's like, my arms don't work. One stroller, one is like, oh, that still sucks. But double is like, oh gosh, man.
Yeah. Or think outside the box with your training. When I did the half marathon, how old were the kids? 5, 6?
17, I think.
They were little. I didn't do long runs because you were training. I didn't have the time to do that. So it was interval training mostly for that whole
And we did a lot of hits.
time. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, Is it perfect? No, but
Is
it's
it
never
forever?
gonna be.
I was going to say, is it forever though in that stage?
It's
No.
not forever, and it's never going to be perfect. So roll with what you can, and at the end of the day, if you did what you could with what you had, then
Yeah,
cheers.
I was gonna say, I think the biggest thing, and I think that's where I'm glad people put that into perspective during the day, the 4th of July race, and even looking back at it, it's that notion of, even, I think the expectations we get too tied up into maybe what we were before.
Mm.
And, we're moving on. We're 40 something, we're 50 something, and especially for the people in their late 30s and 40s where we're at, like you're in the prime of like raising your children. And it's more of like I want to be really as good as I can get with my passion, because I still feel like I've got something to give. And I think in that case it's more of like, well, you just set the expectation, like think about it. For me, I did my half. I ran 120, and everybody's not perfect. Some people might get lucky and do better. But this idea of 2 kids, I was by myself in the final days. And it's more of like, you just ran a 120, well, you had to manage all of these things, 2 dogs, your job, the kids, making sure they're okay. And so it's that idea of like, I guess 120 isn't that bad. I think where I get lost in it is that time that really sucks. That was 5 minutes slower than I was expecting. But when you put it in perspective, you're like, dude, like that was actually really solid, the effort, and I was just more fatigued and I was tired. I couldn't go faster. And I think those are the parts that I honed in on instead of looking at the bigger picture. And I think that's something expectation wise. I mean, I remember when we did have had the littles, I would say I was a bit heavier at that point, too, but I was also living in the dream of like, I still can keep going. And, unfortunately, there just wasn't that time to really devote to that sport, that I wanted to. And I know looking back now, I tell young, parents of young kids, I'm like, this is the point you just survive, like not in a negative light, but this is the point you survive. Like you don't really set goals to like compete or time standard. It's more of this maintenance phase. Can I maintain some sort of training and stability so when my kids get sufficient enough, that I have a more established childcare, I have a more established, network that I can leave them with them and not be guilty for a couple hours because they are at least capable enough of, I'm talking 6, 8 years old, they're capable enough of being alone and not really missing me that much if I'm gone for 90 minutes, and sort of that's the point at which I say like, when you have a kid, maybe 5 years is just sustainable.
Not alone. Though.
Well, no, I didn't mean alone. I said with a kid, with your network or,
Okay, yeah.
that daycare or you get off.
Wouldn't leave a 6-year-old alone in a
Heck no, are you kidding me? No way. But what I'm thinking is like, like you have daycare till 5 and somehow you get off at 3 and you're like, all right, I want to go, I should go pick my kid up. Like, why? They're going to be doing the same thing 2 hours more than what they would do now, or we have a treadmill in the garage. We didn't have one at the time, but we had our gym and it was like, well, so-and-so's at home, my partner's at home. I can at least go, everybody's still asleep. And even to this day still, everybody's still asleep. I can go get 90 minutes of a workout or even 45 minutes of a workout. They're either sleeping and she's there to wake up if a kid needs that. But that's kind of what I'm saying is more of when your first few years, it's more about just maintaining, and that should be enough. I know you want more, but that should really be enough.
Well, and I think quality over quantity with a lot of things when you're trying to balance time with your kids, work, and where your focus is. If you're home, then your focus is your kids. If you're working out, your focus on working out and being able to switch between those. But the other thing that I liked that you said was talking about being like your younger self, because that is definitely something that I think is because the reality is, I will never be 20 again. I will never be 30 again. And so to try to force my body or my goals or my whatever in the past is just doesn't jive with me. I would rather focus on future me.
Yeah. No, I'm learning that now.
Than chasing something of when I was 20.
And that's something.
My life was very different when I was 20 compared to 40. So,
Well, but I mean, I would say that's kind of where we differ too. But it's again not a wrong thing. But your perspective's a little bit more on the excuse me, of the, you've seen yourself progress from 20. You've seen yourself, like find these new levels that you didn't get to test when you were younger. And for someone like myself, I got to test those when I was, younger. And so when you meet at that point in life where, you yourself are seeing this like, whoa, I can do more. I'm seeing is something I hadn't seen in myself before. This makes me more excited to keep chasing at least just potential that I do have. I don't care that I was 20. I have nothing to measure to other than I was just there, versus me,
it's not that bad.
I really was, collegiately and, I dabbled a little bit in, sort of semi-professional running. But it was still this like, I keep testing, I keep wanting to, and this notion of still becoming how it started was I still feel like I can run maybe beat my marathon time from like, I don't know, 36, 35 years old. But it's sort of that, like, I have to manage the expectations now too of being older and trying to balance still. We're both in the middle of our careers right now. And, it is tough, and our kids are getting more into things, and, in fact, we just signed up our oldest one for fencing right now. He's got, he's taking care of a horse. And so it's more of this, like, they have things in the afternoon as well as they're sitting around the house all summer long, pretty much. So they do get bored when we get home, and we have to be there to find something for them to do because they've been by themselves or with the friends. And of course, they're going to want to hang out with you at that point, or at least destroy your house more that you're like, teenagers, let's go to the river or something. But, it's managing those expectations. For me, I'm like, I got to do everything in the morning because this is the only time I can feel like I can think and enjoy it, because it is my favorite thing. And for you, you're not a morning person. Not in the way of like getting up and like, let's hit the page.
I'm not going to get up at 4 a.m. with you, no.
But your stuff, I would say I see you more as a night person. Not super late, but a lot of your activities take place around what would be some people's dinner time, like 6, 8, 9. And it just works for your schedule.
I'm in the middle. I'm not a super early bird and I'm not a night owl. I'm one of those in the middle.
I do like how you balance your things though. Like that's one thing I will say it would drive me crazy. And I try, to anytime I'm like, oh, I got to get weights in. I don't really want to do it in the afternoon, or I got to, occasionally get an afternoon run. Training for a marathon right now. I've got like one day a week where we're doing afternoon runs, but it's still this like, oh man, like I got to do this in the afternoon. And you're like, I'm kind of starting in the afternoon, or wait, my lunch, I don't have a long time in the afternoon because I got to take, Corbin while I'm working to, an event. So I got to do my thing, my weights at lunch. Mm-hmm. And then at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, I'm going to my class, mm-hmm. At night. And so that is, to me, I've always been impressed by your balance, that juggling up and down. And to me, I'm like, I could do it. I just don't enjoy it. But again, it's part of like, sometimes you got to do things you don't, I would say do things you don't enjoy. I mean, there are things I don't really enjoy, hill repeats or something, but like time periods, I guess, that you sometimes just have to squeeze in at that time. And it may not be enjoyable, but it's not forever,
Yeah. Well, you are very much the person though, where you start and finish your workout, and once your workout's done for the day, we're not doing it again unless you have to for your marathons, do a double day. But you don't split up exercise throughout the day.
Not really.
Whereas that tends to be what I've done most of my mom life is a walk in the morning with the dogs. And then, like you said, if I need to work out on my lunch, I'll work out on my lunch. If I do weight training after work, then I do weight training after work or whatever. But I tend to sprinkle exercise.
But it's great because most people would never see that as like, she's working out or like consistency. People just be like, that's all over the place. Like it's, I'm not fit, even though you're like, you'd be surprised how fit you are because you just kind of sprinkle it in here and there, here and there?
Well, again, balance, right? If you're only trying to squeeze in 3 workouts, strength workouts in a week, there's a lot of wiggle room with just needing 3 days a week or even 4 days a week. So it's easier to balance different days, different schedules, and things that get thrown at you when you're not trying to do, I have to work out 6 days a week and it needs to be for at least an hour or I'm a loser. And
Well, I was going to say, sorry, before I lost my point there, we kind of have to remind everybody though, too, and this is something I've learned over the last couple years, but even when you talk about your 3 workouts, I don't want somebody to get this misconception that you're in here, you're on the floor at the end of it. You know, you're out there walking the dogs, you're on the floor of it. Like, no, like to you, it's managing that this is the energy that I need for this. And I'm not about, and we know that, you know, you're not about like, I have to kill myself. And even then, when I come back in here 2 days a week and weight train, it's really just maintenance. It might only be a 20-minute workout for me. You know, she does a little bit longer weights the 3 days a week, but it's managing that effort as well too during, you know, balancing all this, you know, picking and choosing maybe which one you enjoy the most of it and putting more of your effort into that.
Yeah. No, I'm not going for PRs every time I work out. That's for sure.
But I think that's something we needed to just point out.
I sure think, yeah.
Some people will go like 3 workouts. I'm going to go crazy just to keep up with that.
No, I have learned the reality with workouts is that it's on a very wavy length. You have some really good workouts, and there may be workouts where I am pumped and I am ready to go and I can lift way more than I thought I did. And then there's plenty of days where I feel like I am only at 70%, and that's what I'll do.
It's enough. It really is.
But yes, I think that the idea that you constantly have to be better is not realistic. It's not with anything. When we're learning, when we're trying to lose weight, when we're doing anything, there is always an up and down flow to it.
Well, I mean, that being said, I would definitely say this was a good topic to touch on. This was, you know, I hope it helps all of you out there get some perspective on, you know, what it means to sort of balance effort, sort of balance life with kids, you know, and you know, minus kids. And I know it's not, you know, entirely the same, but for those of you that maybe have pets, you know, you've got like 4 dogs, you know, our neighbor has it, but even 3 dogs, you got to balance the walk time for those. Maybe all of them can't be on the same thing, you know, but at least that, or maybe you're taking care of a parent. And I know there is some people out there, I know that, you know, I have a patient that's like that. And it takes a lot of effort. So, you know, vice versa, you know, take out kids, replace it with X. And, you know, it is still possible to follow your passion. It just is more about being, you know, punctual with it and, you know, finding meaning with it in that amount of time you have, you know, and understanding that your expectations might have to drop a little bit to at least maintain the fun with it and maintain the challenge with it. And I just hope that, you know, those of you that are out there struggling at this point in time with figuring out, how do I do this? Just know, I mean, I will say, and I've said it before, you know, I'm no one special when it comes to, you know, that. I don't have any world titles. I'm not an Olympic champion. I'm not any Olympian. I'm just somebody who likes to really work out and likes to test myself. You know, i.e. my wife is not a stage, you know, performer. We're not making a bunch of money, you know, any money on our performances. And I think we're paying for it.
I have to pay to perform.
I was going to say, we're paying for it. So, I mean, that being said, we're about as real as you can get when it comes to things like that. So don't, you know, if you're just normal out there and you're like, oh, do these people? No, we're about as normal as you watching this. So just know it is possible. It just takes time. It takes, you know, patience. It takes realizing, yeah, sometimes you might be just so frustrated and angry. You just need to take a deep breath and maybe just a reset, you know. And I say to you, you know, you are still becoming. You know, I believe in it. And I know my wife believes in it. You know, we both believe in that we're still becoming. And remember, you are the only one stopping you. See y'all next time.